Hello, welcome to today's live stream on Don't Let Your Plastic Melt, Dealing with Credit Cards in Sage 300. Today it's going to be myself, Lisa Hutt, and Mike Bayo going through the process of setting up your credit cards, entering them in, reconciling and paying them. We're going to go through a couple tools as well to help ease that process. So I'm a consultant here at Banger. Mike has also been a consultant here for a little while, and we're going to dive right in. So let's go to setting up the credit cards. So the first thing you want to do in the Sage 300 General Ledger module is create your credit card payable account. So if you haven't dealt with any credit cards yet and you're setting up the first one, you'll want to go into the account setup and create your credit card payable account. So depending on your structure, if you're using prefix bases, but you'll need to come in here and set up the accounts. So credit card payable has already been set up in the sample company, but as you can see, it's just simple. It's a current liability. Most people name it credit card payable, and that's about the gist of what you have to do in here. There are some preference settings that you do need to go into General Ledger Preferences and set up a few things there. But we'll dive into that here in a minute. So after you do the accounts payable setup, or the General Ledger module setup of the credit card payable, you're going to come in here to accounts payable. And you're going to set up the credit card in the credit card setup. So in order to get to that credit card setup screen, you're going to come in here to set up credit cards. Okay, so I've already got that pulled up here. So what you're going to do is give it a name at the top here. You're going to pick your credit card vendor, and I'll show you how to set that up here in a second. Name your credit card. So a lot of people will put the last 4 digits, and like Bank of America, MasterCard, for example, is what this one is. Probably the name of your employee can go there, or the name of the person that owns the card. And you can fill in any of this other information if so desired. Okay. If your credit card is lost, or you need to just inactivate it, you can come over here and inactivate the credit card over here. Okay, so this is pretty simple setup. So let's say you haven't done a setup yet on the vendor at all. You need to set up a credit card vendor over here in the vendors setups, just like any other vendor. So you're going to come up here to set up vendors, just like any other one. You're going to type in the name ID of a vendor, name of your MasterCard or credit card. You can fill in any pertinent information, but the biggest thing you want to make sure to do is pick credit card down here on the vendor type. The reason that this is important is when you pay your any of your bills with your credit card. So let's say you're paying a permit fee and you use your credit card to do that. The system knows not to create a 1099 to that vendor if it's a credit card paid by a credit card. So if you're paying for some materials or a service via your credit card, it will know, the system will know not to issue a 1099 at the end of the year to that specific vendor for that transaction. Okay, so that's what that kind of does. Now, if you turn this on, this is a type that you cannot toggle and switch to another type. So once you pick credit card, you're stuck there. So just wanted to point that out because that can be a sticky point at times for people. Okay. So the setup is pretty simple. You're going to do your general ledger, credit card payable. You're going to set up your credit card, and you're going to set up a vendor if necessary. Usually you'll do the vendor first and credit card second. Okay, so that's the gist of the setup there. There is a setting in general ledger that I'll show you here at the end that you might want to check that's turned on. Okay, so let me go to the next slide here. Mike's going to jump in on how to enter in the credit card charges once you're set up.
Great. Thank you, Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
So, excuse me. So what I'm going to show you here is how to enter credit card charges that were recorded in the system, either from existing invoices that were already in accounts payable, or you're simply recording off of receipts that are turned in from employees as they buy things. One of the first options you do have is back in the vendor setup. One of the common questions we get is well, do I have to set up a vendor for every single little charge that I have? Because that I don't really want to, junk up my vendor list every time. There is a solution. Basically, you can set up what's called a summary vendor in accounts payable. So what I've done here is in the vendor record, you can give it an ID as to whatever your company is using, but I simply called it miscellaneous. And you can set up what's called a miscellaneous vendor. And then down in the vendor type here, if you select summary, what the system's going to do, and we'll see this in a second, is when we enter an accounts payable invoice, a credit card payment, and we select this vendor, it's going to say, okay, well, this is a summary vendor. So it'll give you a little screen where we can actually record who the actual vendor was that we can report on without actually creating a separate vendor each time. Now, if you want to track the history of that vendor and what you've paid for them in credit cards, you can get it out reporting wise, but you may also want to just make sure that vendor is set up in the system ahead of time. So you'll have that option. But the key here is miscellaneous, call it whatever you want, but that the vendor type is linked as summary, and I'll show you how that works. So basically, I'm going to show you two scenarios here to enter a credit card payment. And the first is basically we've entered the accounts payable invoice already in the system, and somebody said, well, let's just pay that with a credit card. So basically, in that scenario, you'll come into tasks and in accounts payable, task, and you'll come into an item here called record payments by credit card. And once I come into that screen, it's going to ask me to select which credit card did you pay this bill with. And I'm going to use the Jerry Peters credit card list. So this is the credit card setup screen that Lisa showed you earlier. This is where it's coming from. So I'll select Jerry. It's going to make you put a reference number in. Some people will just use today's date, or if there's an actual transaction ID, you can type in whatever you want there. But in this scenario, I'm just going to type in 001 and the date of the payment. My sample date is in 2015. So I'm going to actually say that we paid this on 5/15/2015. And now here's that vendor prompt. So do I want to actually record and select a existing vendor, or do I want to use a miscellaneous vendor? Well, in this case, we're going to be paying a bill that's already in the system. So my guess is the vendor is going to be in there. For my example, I'm looking at paying a equipment rental. So I'm going to type in my power equipment rental company, and you can search by name or ID order. And then I'm going to type in, sorry about that. I have compliance warnings that come up in the system. I'm going to ignore those for now. And I'm going to type in the amount that I'm paying. Now, I looked ahead of time, but the amount of this payment is going to be $37.50. You can key this in after the fact too, but I'm going to put it in. And when I come down into here, the system will then let me click the list button and it will show me a list of outstanding invoices for that vendor. So you can see here we have an invoice that is open for $37.50, and someone said, hey, let's pay this via credit card. So I'll select that. And now in this scenario, it's going to pre-fill all the information for you. You don't have to code it. You don't have to fill out the information because the payables is already in the system. And that is an error here because of my screen size. I apologize for that, but I will get back in the system and we'll try that again. So basically, if I go back into record payments by credit card, and select that again here, and we'll just call it 001. And that was vendor ignore the compliance, and we'll say $37.50. Okay. So again, I'm going to select that invoice, 4701, and I'm going to accept it because I'm going to pay that invoice with that credit card. I'm going to get a compliance warning again in my sample data here. If your vendor insurances are out of compliance, I'll ignore that. And I'll accept the payment. And now I could go and actually do a second charge. So in this scenario, let's put in a charge in the system that maybe came from a receipt. So if you have employees who are turning in receipts for you, those can be coded and keyed into the system as they come in the door. You do not have to wait for the bill to come in and go through every charge. You can just write off the receipt, and you can come into here, put in your reference number, what was the date of the charge. And now in this case, this was to, let's say, Home Depot, and I don't really want to put them in my system. So I'm going to use the miscellaneous vendor that we discussed a second ago. When I do that, the system's going to pop up and ask me to fill out some information. So if I want to keep a record on this transaction of who we actually paid, I can simply come into here and say it was Home Depot. Okay, so this will be stored with the transaction. And you'll notice it shows up down below here. So in this scenario, let's just say we bought some insulation and it was $55. So in this scenario, it's going to actually pre-fill the reference number because I do not have an invoice in the system yet. So I'm actually going to be keying in the information for the invoice all at the same time. And you notice it does pre-fill everything down for me. So I'm just tabbing insulation. I'm just tabbing through the system. And when I click the tab, it takes me down to the distribution. This should be a familiar screen. It's the same coding screen yet you'll have available when you're entering your normal accounts payable invoices. You can code it to a project, or you can code it to just a general ledger account. So in this scenario, let's code it to a project, and we'll say it is job 03001, the food warehouse. And we'll say it is for insulation, which I believe I have down here under my 7000 series. And it's material. So all that coding is going to remain consistent with how your system is set up. And it's going to pre-fill the cost of sales material. So now I've actually recorded the payment and recorded the cost to the project and to the general ledger all at the same time. I can accept the distribution. I can accept the invoice. And in this scenario, I'm going to accept, and I'm going to be done entering in my screen. So I've entered all my receipts for the batch that I got today. I'm going to click finish. That's when the system is going to post, and it's going to actually post entries into your job cost, into your general ledger, and into your credit card payable account. So that is the big difference here is if I go into my printouts, and I take a look at the one I just created right here, here's my printout. There's your detail. And the section I want to show you is down here is basically we have a credit card payable account for $38.05.
So,
And
Mike, after you close that printout, the reason that the system knows to post to that credit card payable account is what I was mentioning a minute ago. It's under the AP settings. If you want to show them, I just wanted to
sure.
verify
Yeah.
that
Yep.
people knew this part. I
Yep.
didn't
So
do
you
that.
can come in, and actually I believe there you can have separate defaults too. If you have multiple credit cards, you can default it in the vendor record too. But in the GL entry settings,
Yep.
basically you'll have a credit card payable account right there.
Thank you.
Glad you brought that up. If you do have multiple credit cards, there is also a field in the vendor setup. So if you pull up the Bank of America Visa card or MasterCard, so in this case they do, and over in the terms and defaults, you'll notice there's a credit card payable field right here that can be an individual to each credit card. So if they have multiple credit cards. Okay. So basically we have those charges in the system, and there is a report. You can run some reports. You could run there's a report in the system here. There's a couple inquiries, a couple reports. If you look under cash management for your report menu, you'll see payments by credit card, and you'll also see them in the invoice register, payments by credit card as well. So in this scenario here, if I just open that up, payments by credit card, select my master file, you could date range it, what's been invoiced, what hasn't been. I'm just going to click arrange and just see my MasterCard Visa. And it's going to show you all the charges that have been recorded to date for that credit card. And you'll see there's the power equipment rental we just did. And that's basically how to enter payments by credit card into the system. So we'll have Lisa take it back to Lisa and show you how to skip that step.
Okay, so this is how to import your credit card charges into the system. So if you have a credit card that has tens or hundreds of transactions a month, there is a tool that you can use in order to import those in from a text file or a CSV file. So what Banger has created is an Excel file tool that imports invoices in. So you can actually use this tool to import in other invoices that aren't credit card related. For example, if you have a utility company that handles all of your utilities in your property management company, that's a good scenario where you might want to use this tool as well. Okay, so I'm going to show you, number one, I'm going to show you how to get the menu item up to import it. And then I'm going to show you the Excel file related to it. After we close this live stream, we'll be posting the Excel file onto the live stream, so you can utilize that. So in order to import invoices in, you come up here in accounts payable and you hit tools and import invoices. Okay, so I want to show you the import format before we would run through this, but the import format here is how the Excel file is set up. So these are the fields that the Excel file lists out in columnar format. So this is where we get it from. So if you lose the Excel file or you feel like you want to build it from scratch for some reason, you can use this import invoice format in order to do that. It also gives you the length and what you can put in each column field. So that'll help you a bit. Okay. So that's all that's really used for. But we have built this already out. So, okay. But to actually run, once the Excel file is filled out, to actually run it, you would use this utility. You would pick your text file and you would import. But we'll show you that. Okay, so the Excel file is what I want to show you next. So if you remember on what I just pulled up there on the invoice format, these are the columns that are required for you to fill out. So the ones in yellow are required columns. Okay, so these texts here in blue you don't change. That's just this first column has to be like that. So when you're filling this out, if let's say you have a credit card statement and none of the charges are in your system, say you just do a bunch of permit fees. So what you want to do is this first line is like your header line. So it would be your vendor. So it might be the city of Duluth, let's say. And your invoice number would go here. So what I've done up here too is we've put the character length you can have. So it can be 10, can be 15. You can see the number at the end. This can be up to 30 characters. Okay, so the description, you might put what project it's for or something. $50 is the license fee, no tax, the date, and you might want a different accounting date, I suppose, or payment date as well. And then the second line here is going to be where you code it and you distribute it out. So you want it to go to this job number, that cost code, that category, and then this will be your GL expense account, accounts payable account, in your tax group, exempt. So this specific invoice has one distribution. So the $50 is going to one job. So there's one detail line, D for distribution, APD. So there's one on this one. Same here. Here's the invoice header line. Here's the distribution line. Here's another example of one where it's broken out to 5 different lines. Okay. So you have $50 here for the header line, but you're going to have 5 detail lines. You can see the $10 over here. Okay. Just to give you a visual of what that's like. So on your credit card statement, a lot of credit card vendors will let you download from their website. That's something people have done and have employed as far as using that and dumping it to Excel and bringing it into this file. If you're going to do that, I would suggest reaching out to us. If you're not overly advanced in Excel, we can help you build something to make that a little easier. Because as you can see, you kind of have to manually do this, or you'd have to manually copy and paste if you don't know how to kind of run a couple of matching tools in Excel. So we can help you there. But this is the standard format to bring in invoices. So this example would be 2 invoices. Okay. So once you're done and have all this filled out right here, this is the text that it creates. So Mike, I haven't been able to consistently, successfully get this CSV file to work. So I dump this into text, notepad.
Okay.
So if you run across it, anybody else that does it consistently, let me know, but we'll post that on the live stream. But I copy this into a notepad and that's what I import. So this over here is already done for you. Don't mess with the formula, I would say. But you copy this into Notepad like this and save this somewhere. Okay, so it's doing it all for you. Just putting the commas in and everything. And then you can import that in. Okay, so what happens once you import this file in is it will create a reject record for you. So what I do in this, we save this notepad here. This is very, very helpful when you have a lot of credit card charges. You just got to get the Excel file built to the way your company is set up and all those different columns. Some people use extras, some people don't use commitments. So there's just different things you might want to hire us to help you get that set up all the way. So let's do something like that. And I am expecting this to error out because I don't, I probably have all the vendors in there. But when you put that up there in the import file, what I do, I name it the exact same, but I name it with reject at the end. And because I'm going to tell it that I want this file to be named this so I can go find it. So you want to put it in the same spot, same name, but you want to put reject at the end of it. Okay. So then we're going to print this to file so you can see it. And it may or may not reject here. Okay, so completed with errors. So if I go back to my desktop, you can see I have a reject file here. So that will help you on what didn't go in. So everything failed. You can see it's the same file, but that's the process. So you want to make sure your vendor numbers are correct. Your date format is like this. That's the biggest thing people run into. Okay. So that'll help alleviate some of the entering of the credit card charges if you have a ton of them. If you have maybe 5 to 10, you don't have that many credit cards, you might want to do the way Mike showed and enter them in. Some people enter their charges in as they go throughout the month as well. Okay, so that's how to import the credit card charges in. Now I'm going to bring it back over to Mike. He's going to show you the reconciling and paying of the credit card.
Yes, thank you, Lisa. So yeah, so now, no matter how you get those credit card charges into the system, whether they're keyed in manually, whether they already existed from accounts payable invoices, or you imported them, basically now the credit card company has sent you the invoice, and we are going to reconcile and generate the bill and pay the bill to the vendor, to the credit card company. So once you've received the statement and you are certain you have the majority of your charges in, hopefully all of your charges into the system at this point, what you're going to do is you're going to come into tasks and you're going to click on verify statement balance. Okay, and this is basically where you're going to do a bank reconciliation for a credit card. When you click on verify statement balance, it's going to ask you which credit card vendor do you want to reconcile for. And what you'll notice here is when I select that credit card vendor, it shows me all of the charges that we've recorded or imported into the system to date. Okay. Now, this credit card vendor has multiple cards underneath. So there's some, companies where if you have corporate credit cards, they might issue them a separate card number, but the bill comes in as one big invoice. So in that scenario, you would simply not fill out any individual credit card, but just the credit card vendor, MasterCard, and reconcile and check off which items are on your statement, based on the amounts and the vendors. But if you are getting billed separately by corporate card within the credit card, you can come up to the credit card selection filter up on top here, and you can say, just show me charges for this credit card 1234 Jerry Peters. So now you'll see there's the charges that I keyed in earlier to Home Depot and to the power equipment rental company. So again, it depends on how your credit card company is invoicing you. You can do it either way. I'm going to just zero this out and say they are going to give us one big invoice. So you'll notice here, basically it will show you all of the open charges that haven't been reconciled yet, and it'll show you an unverified total. So as you select these off, so for example, this 3,700 bills in there, and you select off the charges here, you'll notice you get a verified total. So the goal here is that your verified total is going to be the total of what the credit card company has invoiced you for. Now, there may be some additional charges like some bank, credit card fees and things like that, interest. We'll discuss how to handle that. This would be the balance before that. Okay. If this doesn't equal, then chances are you're missing an entry, and that's where you can now simply go through your statement and see which ones are missing instead of trying to reconcile every one of them at this time. So hopefully, you're managing by exception here, and you just need to find the additional charges that haven't been entered into this list yet. And what's nice is as you're going here, I can save my progress and click save here and close that screen. And then once I find the other charges, I can go back into record payments by credit cards, enter that charge, and then I can come back into verify statement and continue on. And you can say, yep, there's the charge now. And my bill from the credit card company was $44.20. So I'm good to go. So as you reconcile these, I would suggest to click the save button, especially if you have a lot of transactions. And you can verify all and unverify all if you get that lucky. But as soon as that has been reconciled, and that is the amount that we need to generate an accounts payable bill for, what we're going to do here is we're going to click create invoice. And when I do that, it's going to actually create an accounts payable bill to that credit card or for that credit card. So if you notice here, you have Bank of America MasterCard, it's creating a statement invoice, but it's actually, an accounts payable bill that you're used to seeing. So again, it's going to have an invoice number. Typically that would be, maybe the statement date. And let's just keep it consistent here. I'm going to say it's for 2015, as I did this incorrectly. And the amount you'll notice pre-filled to $44.20, and it's our MasterCard statement. And I'm going to keep this consistent here. And now you'll notice when I enter down, it's a little different screen here. Now it gives you a place to put in some miscellaneous charges. So if there's some interest, for if there's a fee or a credit card annual fee or something like that, you can come in, or there's just two charges that are just general ledger related that you just want to record right then and there. So I can come into here and select your general ledger account, and we'll just call it, let's see if we can find one here. Well, we'll keep it interest. There's our interest account, and we had $15 in interest or late charge or something like that. So now you'll notice up when I accept that distribution and click create invoice and finish, it is now going to actually take it out of the credit card payable account and put it into the accounts payable account. So now it becomes an actual, we'll call it a typical or general accounts payable invoice for you to pay in the system. If I go take a look at that through an inquiry, if I go into invoice register and I go and take a look and find my Bank of America. Oh, there it is down here. And double click. You'll notice there is the bill in the system as a regular invoice. And you'll also notice that you have the detail you can drill down to and see the charges and where it went to. And you'll notice it's going to the credit card payable account, but then it's going to the $15 charge for the interest as well. At that point, it is just a typical accounts payable bill. You have the same options that you had before. If you've paid it electronically, you can come into here under record manual, print check. And if it's been paid electronically, your payment type, you could switch it to an EFT payment here. You record your electronic payment. Let's say we paid it on 06/01/15, and it's for the MasterCard, Bank of America. And forgive me, I forgot the amount, but we're just going to say it was, I'm going to leave it blank for now and click list. And now you'll see there's the one we're paying. And that was 4435. So that will record an EFT payment through the system for you automatically. You can also do a quick check here and actually generate an actual physical check as well, or select it for payment through your normal process in the system. That will basically complete the process of reconciling and paying off that credit card bill. So I'll turn it back to Lisa.
Okay, so that is kind of the entire process. So you want to make sure you set it up correctly. And like Mike showed, a good tidbit was you can have separate credit card payable accounts for different credit cards you have set up. Some people like that. So that's a good thing to know. You want to make sure you set them up, you enter the charges in, and you do this last step to reconcile and pay it through the verify statement balance. If there's any questions, we'll wait here for a few minutes to see if anyone has any questions. Otherwise, you can always reach out to us too at help@bangertinc.com or reach out to either Mike or I. So we'll wait a few minutes here to see if there's any questions. Okay, so it looks like so far we don't have too many questions. Again, reach out to us if you have anything, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.